Here we go. Okay, Holly Bell, she's fantastic. We're going to learn from her. You have the floor, and good luck. Can you turn it on now? Yeah, don't trip over that cord.
Okay. Yeah, I can't stand still. In fact, I have prizes today. Yeah, you're getting one. It's like, you don't even have, you already earned it. So, as Adam said, I'm Holly Bell from the Utah State Board of Education. I'm the Student and Family Rights Specialist. So I do a broad scope of things, which Student Family Rights already says it's a broad scope. So I help to interpret policies and practices for civil rights groups. So I oversee Section 504, which is protecting all students with disabilities from discrimination, including our students with an individualized education program. Title IX, which protects students from discrimination based on sex. And right now, the Office for Civil Rights interprets this particular group as a protected class. Now, that's a little complicated because it's a little complicated. So right now, we are in the 2020 regulations, which are not as specific. But as far as the Office for Civil Rights, which governs civil rights laws, they interpret it this way. And if they are reported a violation for this population, they're going to investigate it. Not fun. All right, and then I oversee the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VI, which is protection from discrimination based on race, color, and national origin. So I'm very busy. But this is that I also interpret the Utah laws. And that's mainly what we're going to talk about today, is the Utah laws that's all the buzz. And there are a lot of misunderstandings. So I want to clear some of that up. The legislature passes these laws, don't think a lot through the consequences, and don't understand that they're really hard to interpret. And then the Utah State Board of Education takes a shot at it, and they don't do a good job interpreting it. So here I am, the translator of Utah policy, and it's not easy. I love mental puzzles. Do my New York Times games every day. This is a puzzle, and we're going to try to figure out how to put it together. And our main objective is to keep students at the center. Okay? Because as Adam said, this population, which includes me, is in jeopardy, and they're also so fun, right? We're fun. We're colorful, we're fun, and we need to see that too. Not be looking at our kids as this tragic soul that we have to save. Let's give them a spot where they can be them, okay? So let's move on. I tend to get off track, so we're gonna try to not do that. So here are learning intentions for today. I don't wanna be in the way, but understand the policies, talk about, that's what we're gonna do. And to equip you with some updated knowledge of these policies, learn some strategies to support LGBTQ plus youth, which I think that you are already probably well aware of some of those. So we need to share those. I'm going to use the acronym LGBTQ plus. I identify as queer. I know some people are not comfortable with that term, but that's how I identify. But I'm going to use this acronym today. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. And I can't go into a lot of time of defining those, but lesbian is women loving women, gay, men loving men, also women loving women. Bisexual is a person who loves two of gender, so it can be the opposite sex and the same sex, but also a gender that's non-conforming or non-binary. Queer is an umbrella term for all of those. It's also an action word, but I can't get into the research. And so there are intersex, asexual, agender. There's a lot of different identities. The important thing is that we identify ourselves, okay? Our population, this community, let them identify themselves. And it can change. We found out with kids, especially gender, it can change. It can be very fluid. Okay. Recognize the importance of creating safe and supportive environments and exploring the intersection of the deaf and hard of hearing and LGBTQ plus identities. I found some interesting research on the deaf community. Okay, so I asked Adam to ask you to find out what questions you had. This is a summary, not surprising. I do this work a lot. I've been doing these trainings for over like 12 years. I was a school counselor for 10 years, and now I've been at the state board for 6 years. And so this is what I've been doing statewide for a very long time. And pronouns are a big thing. That's because there's nothing clear. And that can be a good or a bad thing, if you really think about it. If we have strict rules on it, we might not like those rules. And so I know that it's uncomfortable for it to be fuzzy, but Utah gives our districts and our charter schools a lot of leeway with that, which can create some inconsistency. That can be hard, but they've given you that. So you've got to make your policies, your administration does. Someone wanted to know about girls' athletics participation and about someone like me. If I'm going to disclose to my students my queer identity, is that okay? Is that, how much do I disclose? Like, how much do I talk about it? That's a really good question. Okay, here's my disclaimer. I did not make this stuff. I did not write this stuff. Don't blame me about this stuff. And I am not an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice. So you can talk to your legal counsel. All right, so this is the research that I found from the Trevor Project. That is a Trevor died by suicide. This is a organization that was started by his parents to promote suicide awareness, to provide resources for suicide prevention and awareness. They have like a 24/7 hotline. Some students who identify as LGBTQ are more comfortable going to Trevor than they are 988 or Safe UT, because they know that they're going to reach someone on the other line that is going to be respectful and understanding. So they released this research brief that I wanted to share, and that's that overall 5% of LGBTQ plus youth reported experiencing deafness or serious difficulty hearing. Deaf LGBTQ plus youth had significantly higher rates of reporting that they struggled or were unable to meet their basic needs. So 25% compared to LGBTQ plus youth who were not deaf. And this was their mental health. So Trevor Project does a mental health report every year, survey. And so this is what they found with the deaf community. So we have our recent depression. That's not, okay. Recent depression metric. Oh, look, it's up there, I feel like a cat. So recent depression, so we have 81% is our deaf population as compared to 68% of the hearing population. As far as considering suicide, we've got 55% for our deaf population as opposed to 39% of our hearing population. And we have a suicide attempt rate at 26% and 14% for our hearing population. Okay, so here is statistics on rates of discrimination. So we discussed a little bit. So our deaf LGBTQ plus youth reported significantly higher rates of discrimination in the last year due to their sexual orientation or gender identity. So 59% compared to their hearing peers, 43%. And deaf youth who reported discrimination due to their sexual orientation or gender identity in the last year reported nearly twice the odds of considering suicide in the last year and over twice the odds of attempting suicide in the last year. Okay, this is that data. There's also data that they talked about supporting communities. So, however, many deaf LGBTQ plus people also reported feeling welcomed and included as LGBTQ plus people in their deaf communities, and that the intersection of their deaf and LGBTQ plus identities as a source of social connection, support, and community. and high levels of family support. And this is research that we've seen across this community, the importance, the significant importance of family support and connection, that they were associated with decreased odds of considering or attempting suicide in the last year.
Are these numbers for Utah only, or are they across the nation?
Their nation.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm like,
We have a really hard time allowing the collection of data when it comes to this population in Utah.
right, well, because
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put it out there, as someone who has a daughter, and high school's been hell. So I'm like, I think it's a lot higher than that. Sorry.
No, I live here. I've lived here for 51 years, so this is not like new. Thank you for sharing that. This is a safe space.
It is.
Yeah.
This is a safe space.
But I also go into brave spaces where I'm just going to say, I'm not going to say anything that's against the law, but I'm going to say things people don't necessarily want to hear, depending on their belief system. And I'm not going to apologize for that. So I'm not here to talk about.
Me do. What you me do? What you just me do? What you just me do?
Okay.
This is really good. This is active, like totally right where we're going.
I did that. Okay, I tried so hard. Oh.
I'm sorry. The old Taylor can't come from the phone right now.
Any Swifties out there?
She's dead.
So I'm a Swiftie, and if you couldn't tell, so there's going to be kind of a Swiftie theme going on. Don't worry, I know not everybody is, so I'm going to put some other things. I got Diana Ross in there. So yeah, I tried so hard to make this as accessible as possible. I have taken hours and hours of training on ADA accessibility, on like presentations and that. And I taught myself how to do, like, to code the what's it called, closed captioning on videos. And I went from Clipchamp. My partner's watching me like spend hours on this. So I tried my best. I really did. Okay, so we're going to talk about House Bill 261. Which maybe you don't wonder why. So DEI, and also the anti-DEI bill is what it's called. It's the Equal Opportunity Initiatives bill that applies to every government-owned, like publicly funded workplace, school, higher ed, And so there's a lot of misconceptions going on about this bill, but it does impact the LGBTQ plus community. So that community has become more and more of a conversation throughout the last years. Not a big secret. So I'm going to point out some things that are often misunderstood, which is in the red. Now, you don't have to remember what these all apply to: training initiatives, policies, procedures, practices, programs, offices, programs, and related materials that may not promote prohibited discriminatory practices. That promote, which is discriminatory practices based on one's personal identity characteristic, which is race, color, I don't want to get this wrong because they didn't get it right. Anyway, race, color, ethnicity, sex, sexual orientation, national origin, religion, or gender identity. So they didn't include disability? I don't get it. Anyway, but it's federal requirement. We all know that. So required. This is just the everything bagel, like everything in education. I don't know if you like education or everything bagels, but it doesn't matter because you might not like this law. So the required training. Are you all required to come here today?
No.
Oh, somebody's nodding. He's saying no. You chose to come. You chose to go out of bed today. Did you see the agenda? Okay. Okay. So this only applies to required training materials, like admissions requirements, like things like that. It's only what's required that this applies to. And when you're saying that someone should be discriminated against, it's the individual. So not a collective community. I mean, that's already in civil rights. So But as far as this goes and these laws that apply to Utah, it's individuals. And that's a big conversation going around is they don't want people lumped into groups. And we'll talk about that. They want people to be, they wanted them to be considered based on their individual characteristics. So we can't say that. They should be discriminated against. And these are exact words. I didn't make any of these words up. That they should be discriminated against in violation of federal non-discrimination laws. So I already explained what those are. Receive adverse treatment, be advanced or receive beneficial or differential treatment. A lot of that comes out of, if you listen to any of the conversation, a lot of it is like admissions into higher ed institutions is where this came up a lot. And then be excluded from participating in institution-sponsored or public education program. When they say institution, they're talking about higher ed. That's the word that they use. Okay. They can't, you're like required training, same thing as what I just said before. I just split it in half. So you can't promote that an individual should bear responsibility for actions committed in the past, feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or other psychological distress. You can talk about that in a second. Be ascribed values, morals, ethical codes, privileges, or beliefs. So this is an individual. Okay. First one, what do you think that was talking about? Like,
Native American.
so an individual can't be blamed for what happened, this mass genocide. Okay, so feeling discomfort, guilt. This what I want to say. It's not that you're responsible if they feel uncomfortable or guilty, or if they feel anguish or psychological distress. Not your responsibility how they react or how they feel. You just can't tell them you should feel bad. You should feel bad that this happened. So, and then this is what I was talking about before, that an individual shouldn't be ascribed values, morals, ethical codes, privileges, or beliefs. I actually appreciate this. As a queer person, you don't need to lump me into what every other queer person believes. I'm not going to talk for every other, just like any other person of color is not going to talk for their whole population. We have individual experiences, need to be respected for that. You don't need to make assumptions about us. You need to let us be who we are. Okay. Moving on.
Did you have that for every slides? It was just.
Look what you made me do is, okay, so I did
I thought you were asking, like, what did I make you do?
Look what you made me do, Adam. This is not a required training for me. So I am here of my own volition. So background of that, I did a presentation for the Included United conference, and it was all Taylor Swift themed. And we each had like a song that went along with Taylor Swift. And obviously LGBTQ policy would be, look what you made me do. So I just took snippets. Oh, you should have seen my conference, like how my conference description, the session description it was beautiful. But so these are little snippets from that presentation. Good question. You'll hear other things. It's just for this law. So, okay. Again, required or mandatory training programs, related materials, policies, procedures, practices, programs, offices, or initiatives may not promote prohibited discriminatory practices that assert that sociopolitical structures are inherently a series of power relationships and struggles among racial groups. Anyone know what that's called in like social justice language? Systemic racism? That's kind of what you hear it called. You can't promote that resentment between or resentment of individuals by their personal identity characteristics. In the classroom with our students, I don't think that we are promoting that they should be resentful, but that's part of the law. And that asserts that meritocracy or characteristic traits, including hard work ethic, and are inherently racist, sexist, or associated with or inconsistent with any racial or ethnic group. That's a mouthful. Anyone want to give a guess? Because most people don't know what meritocracy means. When they wrote it in, I actually had to look it up. I've been doing civil rights now for like 6 years. I had to look it up. So anyone want to take a guess at what meritocracy means?
We're deaf educators. You got to be like straight up and
Straight up.
Yeah, just tell us what it is.
Okay. So, well, that's good because I'm a very straightforward person. It's actually, the definition is kind of embedded in this, where it's about merit. So that's the key word, that it's that philosophy that you can be anything in America. You pull yourself up by your bootstraps. No matter what your background is, you can be successful. Okay, so that's why they're wanting to get across that there's nothing inherently racist, sexist, or associated with or inconsistent as far as their ability to do that. So that's what meritocracy means. What does it take for our students to be able to access all of those things? Do they all require the same thing to be successful in this country? Okay. Oh, bribing your teacher. Okay. You know what? There's some privilege to knowing how the education system works and how to bribe your teacher. So I don't deny that. Now I want to break this up into two. So according to accessibility rules, I can't make the titles the same. So we're checking it thrice. That is not the official lyrics. Okay, so again, we cannot assert that ascribe moral character values. This is very similar to what the earlier one. Ethical codes, privileges, or beliefs are determined by an individual's personal identity characteristics. Because it's like kind of the same. And then we can't assert that one personal identity characteristics is inherently superior or inferior to another personal identity characteristic. So we can't say that a person who is white is superior to a person who is a person of color. We can't say the person who is straight is superior to a person who is queer. We can't, and I'm going to use that and so
even though those of us with green eyes are far superior to
you can't say that out loud.
No stars on that.
It is, first of all, eye color is not in there, so you can say it's redheads can say that they are superior over not redheads. So take that for what you will. Yeah. There are lots. Okay, I'm not going to talk about loopholes. Anyway, I am going to model for you, just so you're aware. I am modeling for you today how you can talk about these things within the classroom. If I am being snarky, that's probably not the way. That's not modeling. That's just being me. But the rest of it is modeling. Okay. So I put and here because when you read a policy, you need to pay attention to every comma, and, or, may, shall. May not means you absolutely can't. Shall means you absolutely have to. May means Y'all get it figured out. So this is an and. So everyone's going around and saying, I can't use the word diversity, I can't use the word inclusion, I can't use the word equity. You can't use them together to any of these things up at the top. So you couldn't call this training diversity, equity, and inclusion training, but I could call it diversity and inclusion training. There's an and. I could call it equity and inclusion training. I could call it equity training. I can't call it diversity, equity, and local. There's nothing in here saying you can't use those words. It's just these things as far as training programs, related materials, okay, it's an everything bagel. But it's the office, policy, procedure, practice, program, blah, 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 blah. And inclusion, so the three together. Yeah, the look on your face means that you are thinking what everyone else is thinking, and therefore they're taking the words out.
The world knows all, but one thing's for sure.
Okay. So a prohibited discriminatory practice. So this is, I want to bring some light. I always try to bring hope and light. Like I've got a lot of people that are saying, I can't do this, I can't do that. This is, you know, we've had to change this program, we've had to change that. I'm saying, okay, it's done. What's done is done. This is what we're left with. Let's focus on what we can do. Everything we can't do. So I've told you some things you can do. Now we're going to continue to do that. So prohibited discriminatory practice does not include policies or procedures required by state or federal law, including laws related to prohibited discrimination or harassment. So all the ones that I have talked about before that I oversee, federal law supersedes state law. So whatever, I mean, unless there's there's a court case right now that Utah participated in to not, which has put us in an injunction with the Title IX 2024 regulations. And that is because of the protections for LGBTQ plus population and also pregnancy related discrimination things. That's just it. So there are some court cases that kind of get mixed up in them, but there are federal requirements for reporting, for discrimination, and there are resources to report some infractions of those things. And also HEIs, so that's your higher ed institutions, and LEAs, local education agencies, that means charter schools and districts, not individual schools. And so you may, this one, a lot of people are kind of really surprised, that you may provide support, guidance, and resources that equip all students, including all students at higher risk of not completing a certificate or degree, with experiences and opportunities for success in each student's academic goals. Actually, it's the next one that people are surprised about. But what does it take to equip students at what makes students at high risk of not completing a certificate or degree?
Engagement.
Family history.
Families.
Family support. Okay. What else?
I know that I've had kids who were so depressed, they couldn't get out of bed and come to school. 'Cause
Mental
school was
health?
not a place that they really wanted to be.
Okay. Why wouldn't they want to be there?
Lots of reasons.
Lots of reasons. Why were they? So you're thinking school wasn't a place they wanted to be, and therefore they felt depressed. So what was going on in school?
I mean, for some of them,
We don't know
it
sometimes.
was, you're so far behind, I'm never gonna get caught up, why go?
Mm-hmm.
Others, I hate that I'm different.
Okay.
Everybody sees me as different, I'm not included, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, everybody has different reasons. Some of them, there've been traumatic childhoods, right? They all
Mhm.
have different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some places where students don't feel like when they go to school that they are loved, they are supported. There's nobody there for me. What's the point of going?
Okay. So what you're saying is those factors, and Section 504 is about access, and mental health conditions fall under 504 quite a bit. And so it's about access. So those things all line up. But the things you're talking about, just broadly speaking, students not feeling like they belong at school, they don't like the way they're being treated, they feel different, they think, why bother? Someone's telling them you're never, or they're feeling like they're never going to graduate. Those are not academic things, but what you're telling me is that our students who are at risk for whatever reason should be afforded experiences and opportunities for their success. Okay, just gonna leave that hanging in the air for y'all to talk about as educators, what that could look like for your population. This is the one that surprises people. It's complicated. Professional learning, training, instructional programs, and related materials may not prohibit, may not, remember I said may not. There's no may. There's may not prohibit or ban discussions of events, ideas, attitudes, beliefs, or concepts in the marketplace of ideas or instruction related to race, color, national origin, religion, disability, or sex if it's consistent with state and federal laws. You can't prohibit these discussions. So basically what this is saying, and this is, Einstein said, the best practice is not for you to, I'm not actually telling you a direct quote, and I wish I had it in here, but he's like, we're not giving them the answers. That's not our job. Our job is to give them information and for them to decide the answers, do the research, do their homework, do the thinking, and decide for themselves. But we can't, and let them discuss. And as long as we've set up an environment that is, we have put rules into place, that we are respectful, that what does respect mean? Like that we have put that in place that you can point to and say, no, I'm going to stop the conversation right here. It's getting personal. All ideas are valued in this class and are valid, but we're breaking into some like really harassing language. And so we stop it. So there are no prohibitions. Okay, like I said, policy can put you to sleep. So I try to mix in some fun things. And so the first person to raise their hand when they know the answer to the trivia, anyway, okay. Taylor Swift mentions Glad in which of her songs? I think this is the last Taylor Swift. No, well, anyway, go ahead. Okay, who knows? Just take a guess. Anyone who could even just take a guess. We don't have any Swifties in here?
No. Can I text?
You're going to get a prize anyway. Okay.
Text my daughter just to know.
No texting your children. Oh, nobody wants to just take a guess of any Taylor Swift. What was that?
Isn't it the trailer?
You got it. Yep.
Somebody that we don't know, but you're coming up my bags like I'm a soul. You mad when you could be blind. Yeah, she would rather be in the dark ages thinking that's time. It's been all night. You just need to sit several seats and then try to restore the peace and control your urges to scream about all the Thank you.
Okay. That's why my partner says it was kind of hard. Which LGBTQ plus icon is somewhere over it?
Rainbow.
Yeah, who said it? Oh, I'm going to tell her that. Okay, you can both have one. Okay. I just told them in the back, my partner is neurodivergent, and she's like, I don't understand. And I'm like, because I was like, tell me if you can get this. And she's like, I don't understand. And so I was like, well, someone's got to get it. I get that you don't get it. It's fine. I'm like the metaphor anecdote queen. And she's like, no, why can't you just say this in plain English? So I've gotten used to using my metaphors and then explaining what the metaphors mean. And in front of all of my presentations too, because I can't not use them. It's like my favorite thing, way my brain works. But for some in the neurodiverse community, they don't understand. And I think that makes sense where she's like, why don't you just say it for what it is? Fair. Okay, so I don't know if you've heard of R277328, but that was passed in 2021. It was a professional learning requirement for all of our LEAs for their educators. So if you got this, cool, but it was different. So they changed it on my birthday. Thanks. I was there till 11 o'clock at night, working on the amendments to this rule. Yeah, anybody want to come work for the Utah State Board of Education? It's a good time. But this was my birthday jacket. Thank you. Amazon. Okay, so there are some, like, these are the things that you're supposed to be trained on, and these are some guiding principles. They changed it to equal opportunity in education. It was educational equity in schools. So they changed it to this. And so this is the new language and the things that have to be taught. So fostering a safe learning environment conducive to the learning process and free from unnecessary disruption. So that might look like what I talked about. Like, student stands up and says, I believe in two genders. And you're like, okay, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're crossing into a boundary here with the way we treat our classmates. Identifying students in need of academic support. We kind of talked about what that might look like for certain populations when they need academic support. Recognizing the constitutionally protected rights of all students. This, underlying the backdrop of this, is First Amendment rights. Freedom of speech. Freedom of speech for everyone. Develop strategies to promote the examination of various viewpoints on a topic in an impartial and politically neutral manner. Okay, so we've talked about that a little bit. What kind of strategies are you using to promote the examination of various viewpoints? What I'm finding out there is that people, and I will give you time to answer the question. What I'm finding out there is that people are avoiding them more so than developing strategies to examine them. They just cut out the topics that might be controversial. And some of those topics that are controversial are actually in our standards that you have to teach. History, especially.
I think there's a common feeling. I know when I was an outreach teacher going in to work with a kid, even with this, presenting this, I just feel like I'm not in a place to be to lead a conversation in it, right? I wouldn't know how to help a student work through it if I don't have a firm grasp. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
We are in a place, and a lot of us are in communities where if you were to say certain things and you think that you're doing it according to the law, you then have admin or parents who come in behind you and are like, you're breaking the law. You are, and this is where it's like the folk law, folk doctrine laws, whatever, that are in our community. And then our worlds are not that big in Utah. And then all of a sudden you're land-based throughout.
So you want to keep your job? Is that what you're telling me? My doctoral research that I'm going to be collecting data now, as soon as I defend my proposal, is about the experience of queer educators in Utah. And so most of the research shows that our queer educators, all over the world, are worried about their job safety and things like that.
They don't feel safe putting up a picture of them and their partner in their classroom where it's totally normal for anybody else to do that.
Right. And I get that. That really saddens me. And some of them think that it's against the law that they could do that. And all I'm saying is equality, equal rights according to the law. If they're going to ban family photos of same-sex couples, then they need to ban family photos of heterosexual couples. If they're going to ban my jewelry cheap jewelry. They have to ban all jewelry that represents ideologies for anyone. So that's the way equality looks like, or should look like. But people are living in fear. Now, granted, you don't have to bring your family life into your workplace. I would have a picture on my desk because I want to look at that every day. Like that makes me happy. And especially when I don't feel happy during certain days of my job. I do today, thank you. I do enjoy doing this, not sitting until 11 o'clock at a board meeting, but yes, exactly. And guess what? I have to mask that look underneath. I'm going and face my face, and there it's like, so anyway, having your family there, having family support, like right there visually in your space, that makes you feel good. It's going to make you a better teacher. So most people are not like making you take family photos. A lot of flags are going down, and there is that right. But these are your rights. And as far as what you're saying, you know your rights, and you can take it back to your administration if you're being told something different, which that might scare you as well, right? But in my ideal world, the administration would back you up. That they're making policies that are going to back you up. So those parents that come after you, they're going to say, no. Like any leadership theory, it's like you back up your staff. If they're breaking the policies and the law, then that's another thing. We need to work with them on that because, there's a lot of laws to understand. I really think we need to give our teachers the benefit of the doubt. But they need to protect you and back you up when those parents come in and attack you. Thanks. 20
And they
minutes.
might protect you and back you up, but then they also put a glass ceiling on top of you at that moment too.
That's pointing. Yeah. And I get it. I've seen all the research. We're in a pickle. And I could sit there and say, hey, I'm there for you. And I am, but I can't fix everything. I have found teachers other jobs in districts where they won't be. Anyway, Adam's like,
Trying to steal our teacher.
I'm not trying to steal your teachers. Y'all the good ones. You invited me. Okay. This is the definition of inclusion. You're probably familiar with the special ed rules. They actually changed the definition of inclusion last year, but this first part is specific, is about the whole community. That you need to implement principles and strategies of inclusion. And yes, they use the word inclusion. It's hard for them to banish the word inclusion because it's in special education. So they can't really do that. But yeah, promoting the strategies and principles that students are accepted and valued as members of the school community with equal opportunities to contribute by creating conditions for meaningful participation. Now, other places I present don't necessarily know what meaningful participation is, but you all do, right? So it's like actually not just being able to participate, but meaningfully participate. So like that you are gaining all the benefits, not just, okay, you're allowed to come. So having your voice there. All right, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on House Bill 257. This is the bathroom bill. It's not, but this is what it's called. And you probably I don't get a lot of questions because people have kind of figured it out, not that they're happy about it, but they have figured out that our students who are gender diverse or transgender can't use the bathroom that is not aligned with their sex assigned at birth, and they call it biological sex in the law, and they can't unless it's certain conditions. So, and there are certain conditions where they can. So one thing that's misunderstood, you don't have to provide documentation. So, and this involves other government buildings and things. So you met my partner, she's very masculine. She's a cisgender woman. goes by she, her pronouns. I go by she, they. She is threatened in a bathroom multiple times, like because she's got the short hair. She's called he all the time. And I kind of have to stand by, give people like, don't mess with my girl. So she, her going into a bathroom, much different than me going into the bathroom. But she doesn't have to provide a birth certificate or driver's license or whatever. That's not required. But if somebody thinks that she might be in the bathroom that does not align with her sex and height of birth, they can report her. And then it's a crime. Unless they find that she is in the right bathroom. I kind of joke around, like, I so want to walk into, because you know how the men and women's bathroom is like dress and pants. And I so want to like walk up to her and go, what one do I go in? I don't know, I'm wearing pants today. Anyway, I haven't done it yet. But, okay. So there are conditions where a student, if they need a different privacy space, the schools, K-12 schools can develop a privacy plan. I haven't seen a lot of the plans yet. It doesn't apply to intersex individuals, unisex, or single occupant facilities. There is a definition of intersex, means an individual in our law, an individual who is born with external biological sex characteristics that are irresolvably ambiguous, born with 46 XX chromosomes with virilization, born with, 46, no. That was the line I copied and pasted. XX chromosomes, XY chromosomes with okay, this testicular, whatever. Okay. So, does it require, oh, look at that. Okay. So
when did this law come into?
Just
last session.
Just last session.
I said it applies to all government-owned facilities, including public schools, regulating the sex designation, restrooms, changing rooms, or locker rooms. I mentioned that it's a crime. I forgot I put these all into a different. Were you able to see? Oh, never mind. Okay, conditions. Your biological sex have to correspond with the space, or you have to have undergone a primary sex characteristic surgical procedure, or if you have an employee whose duties include the maintenance or cleaning of the changing room, or dependent minors of adults with caretaker whose biological sex corresponds with the sex designated space. First, did I do that again? Somebody providing sex safety services, employee of a healthcare facility. So these are all the things that could, or is fine for you to go into the bathroom that doesn't align with your biological sex. So legally amended birth certificate, or a minor children with parent, guardian, or relative whose biological sex corresponds with sex designated space. Somebody asked me about coaches at my last training. I was like, that's a really good point. And so I would think with coaches, they'd probably have to make sure the space would clear out. Like that would probably be the way I would interpret it if somebody asked me. But I mean, technically they can't be allowed into a space, so they need to provide a plan for that adult to go into that locker room that doesn't align with their biological sex. So I imagine they can't go in unless it's cleared out. If that's not happening, then they have to talk to me. Okay, brain break time. These are very important. Any questions about bathroom? Adam's like, oh my gosh. Yes, this is my everyday life. Okay. Who was the first Black openly gay actor to win an Emmy? It's a hard one. I don't know if anybody's got it so far, but I just want you to know.
I'm like, there you go.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's Emmy. Thank you. Emmy versus, because you're not saying.
Who was it?
Oh, yeah.
Just guess. I mean,
It's music. I'm thinking Oscars.
I have no idea.
okay. Anyone want to just? I heard somebody try to think of it.
TV. Oh, it's Latrice.
Okay, we're just gonna go with that.
Oh, Billy Porter. I guess, though. Don't
But you're
cry.
still gonna get it.
Let these people know I'm never free.
Expectations are gone, just watch it. Eyes smart, my cinematic flair. I'm not there yet. I'm not a lazy broken feel. Dawn's as hard as steel. I can find a contradiction. A worry of contradiction. I'm not leaving that on the joy face of
Okay, that's the Land of Lola. So weird. I was driving up here and there's a billboard that said Lola. So I guess there's some brand, but I was like, oh,
I know this.
it's an omen. I'm supposed to be here today. Yeah.
It's Marty milk. Oh, yeah.
Kelly, go Kelly, go Kelly.
Okay. Thank you for doing. Okay, these are the educator standards. I mean, they might seem obvious to you, but yeah, just so you know, like if you haven't read them lately, you should, because you signed on to that when you got your license. Can't participate in sexual, physical, or emotional harassment. You can't expose students to pornography. I'm not going to get into what that is. To read the definition of pornography is like pornography. So it's pretty clear of what it is. It's not books with LGBTQ plus characters. Unless they're doing naughty things, which I've seen, well, that's subjective. It's in the law of what naughty things are. But if, like, I've seen plenty of heterosexual books, not that I read them, that have naughty things. So, okay, just want to clear that up. And I've got some books online. If you History Makers Month, they've got one that with families that has a lot of same-sex parents represented in them.
They on the list?
Yep.
I'm like, I was just given the list yesterday and told me I can't have any of these books.
We
But
talked-
that's breaking the law.
We did
I'm
talk
just
about
telling
that.
you, I was just. told-
Then you
given
got to take out all the
yesterday.
heterosexual books that have heterosexual.
Well, I was just telling you what I was in a meeting about.
It's okay.
this
We
yesterday.
did have to share the banned book list.
Banned books is one thing, and there are a lot of naughty LGBTQ books. There are. I would wish that there were more than aren't. So, but these are children's books. These are like, for the
Judy
littles.
Blume was on that list.
Well, I know, but it's not a picture book. I don't know if Judy Blume has pictures
Judy
in her
Blume
book.
was on the list. I was like, wait, what?
I know. I don't
They're looking at me like that.
remember that
It
disclaimer.
actually is.
Judy, one of Judy Blume's was on the list. I was like, what?
I know.
Okay. You have,
That's a whole other thing. Sorry, Bob. Go on.
We're good. Yeah.
you got just about 10 minutes.
Okay. Can discriminate against, harass. Invite, if this is a new one, invite, suggest, or encourage a student to reconsider or change the student's sexual orientation or gender identity. On its face, you're going, what? Who would do that? And I don't think anyone would do that. But there's some ambiguity in that I'm uncomfortable with. And this is the thing here as far as instruction materials, like you can't use your position through instructions, materials, or symbols to actively endorse, promote, or disparage a particular partisan, religious, denominational, sectarian, agnostic, or atheistic belief or viewpoint in a manner inconsistent with the policy of the LEA. So this is where like flags get into play, and they wanted to do a specific flag law it was dirty. It was dirty politics, and it didn't pass at last legislative session. But LEAs get to make the decision on what these policies are. So a lot of flags are going down. But I want our administrators to be careful about this, because to interpret what a symbol would be to actively endorse or promote, if you start, like if we start saying that that a material like a family photo is promoting gender and sexual diversity, we got to think of the whole gamut. So if my bracelet is promoting, it's a rainbow bracelet. It's not a rainbow flag. It's a rainbow bracelet. Somebody else with a bracelet or a ring or a necklace that has something to do with their religious denominational, that their beliefs, you're taking off my bracelet, you're taking off their ring. Okay?
This can also be said for like, if you wanted to promote your university and you went to a LDS university up the road, it would include that as well. So just so you understand where she's going with this. That's
Well, that's my question with the putting something on my door as the school psychologist, so students know this is a safe space and they can come to me.
Well, and that's one of the things that people are making a certain interpretation.
That's why I want an answer to this question.
They have the right to control the education environment.
Well, like in our district, we basically, you have your lanyard. Your lanyard is kind of your own little personal word.
That's what most
Like,
policies are going at.
You know, it's like, you have an ally pins.
Yeah, most things are going at that.
But it's your pin. You can have a t-shirt, but you can have a pin on your lanyard.
I have a pin on my lanyard, so okay, I'm good.
Right, you know.
There's a cool video I wanted to share. No, I know. The time.
the times.
Hey, I know. It is what it is. Like I told Adam, he's like, are you okay to go to 12:30? I was like, I could go to 3:30 with this topic. I'm not gonna do that. So on this one, I want to point out, and like I said, you're gonna have the slides and you have access to the laws. I just try to break them down a little bit. So I want you to make sure that you're stopping, mitigating, and preventing harassment. And having the ability to stop and mitigate is hard, right? When you've got a student using the N-word right in front of your face or saying that's okay, to stop it and mitigate it is really confusing. And you have to develop some strategies. I'm going to make Adam in charge of that. Okay, this is oops.
I'm sorry, this is the interpreter speaking. Did you say it's not, you're not allowed to mitigate, or you are allowed to mitigate?
You best be mitigating.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Shoot. This gets into a lot of our school psychologists and our school counselors, and those that have been in that field have seen this already, probably. It's kind of what they consider the Utah FERPA, not what it's called, but it's getting parent permission to survey or anything about these topics. And they added gender identity into it this year. So basically, if a student discloses, like automatically or spontaneously discloses to you that something about their identity, that doesn't mean that you call home to parents. Unless you want a student says, I'm gay, and then you're like, okay, I'm calling your parents. Then you have to call all straight parents. So good luck with that. Don't survey all your students if they're gay or straight. Don't do that.
We talked about that too. That was one of the laws. You can't survey your students unless you have parent permission beforehand, 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
For protected classes. We talked about that in our staff meeting.
There were changes in student survey laws too that I have in here, and it's complicated. So just as far as student confidentiality, it's if you think there's a serious threat to their well-being. Being queer is not a serious threat to me, just saying. It's just who I am. One of the things I am. Don't think that that's everything I am. Don't think that's everything your student is, because that's part of their identity. So not a serious threat to me. except for some of the people who don't like that about me. You can't violate their confidentiality unless it serves the best interest of the student. And you can't provide information and observations to a parent, or you can provide the observations to a parent. So these are kind of like you have to use your best judgment as educators. Now, this is something that came up in one of your questions, the student confidentiality piece. So I have to cover pronouns. That has access to records. We're not going to talk about sports. Basically with sports, it's they can participate if they meet certain conditions, and there's a commission that decides that. And as far as I know, nobody has got through the commission in the sense this has been there. Okay, pronouns. So this is a district policy or a LEA policy. They have to decide how you're going to handle pronouns. And the question I get all the time is, what if the parent chooses it? Or what if the parent tells you that they don't want you to use it? It's a parent rights state. So you have to, you need to work with the parents. But I don't think anyone's monitoring, well, never mind, people are monitoring classrooms. So there isn't as a rule. But they, like I use they and she. I'm a cisgender woman, which means my gender identity aligns with my sex assigned at birth, but I'm trying to get people to understand that they is a general neutral. And if I don't know a person's identity, regardless, if a person like me walks into a room, I'm not going to call that person she until I know. So I'm going to say they. Practice this with pets, dogs, babies, like when it's safe, like practice, because they is hard. But I'm just trying to get people to understand. And somebody asked, like, can I just not use pronouns? Sure, use names, but names are hard too, because sometimes they're asking to use a name that is not on the record. Got to have your policies with that too, but they have to be non-discriminatory. So if I'm going to call you something, I'm going to call you Bill instead of William, and you're saying, I'm not going to call you Cindy instead of John. Is that equal? So don't be surveying the students about that, though. I would recommend asking parents, what do you want me to call your child? That would be my best advice. If a student comes to you in confidence and says their identity, as far as if they are part of the LGBTQ community, that's really good for you. That means they trust you. But keep that to yourself unless the child says, I'm really struggling. Then talk to them, like, do not disclose that identity that they've trusted you with unless you're working with them and you say, hey, have you thought of talking to the counselor? Like, how can I support you? But keep that in confidence to yourself. It's not something that you have to call parents. That's not a serious threat, like I said. As far as me telling you, like, okay, so this one's hard as far as letting students get to know you. I'm going to have a photo of my family that's going to include my same-sex partner, and I'm not going to say that's my sister. Like some people do that. I'm not going to say that's my sister. I'm going to say that's my partner. If they say, like, who are these people? But I also think, okay, so think about your students. If you're a cisgender person, or a straight person, are you going to class and you're like, hey, everyone, I'm straight. Just want you all to know, in case you're wondering. It's like, think about the opposite. But what are you telling all of your students? If you are just in this, I am straight cisgender, you're not going out and saying, but to help them, I understand. But to share your own story, I don't know. Do you want to share all your personal stuff with your students? That kind of seems like it's walking the line. But I could say to, hey, I've got, here's my family, partner, kids. My partner and I went to, my girlfriend and I, whatever. We're too old to be girlfriends. But so I can say, just casually, like any other identity would. But to get real personal with them, I can say things to them like, I'm sorry that you're struggling. I know this is hard. I've had some experiences that have been hard. I don't need to go any further into that story.
Sorry, that's the bell.
Well, that's the final message. That's in my video. So overall, this is my advice. So just, we're all in this together and just get to know them. Just get the music they like. Music is really important. Ask them their icons. You can put Judy Garland on your wall. And reach out for help. Like you can reach out to me and I'm going to put my contact information. Okay. I am supposed to put this survey up there. Y'all are supposed to take it. I hear it's quick, but and those are your resources. And then this is the video. I'm not gonna play it, but there's my email address. You won't let me play it.
Did you play
I
it?
can't do it. Adam says I can't.
It's played.
It automatically played. I can't help it.
Is this part of the presentation?
No, it's not. Bonus material.
Thank you, Holly.
Let me turn it off though.